The LATAM Airlines Dreamliner, with no notice, drops from the sky.
There was a massive error.
This 62-year-old was found dead on Friday, March 8th, 2024, from an alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound, I presume to the head. This man worked for Boeing for over 30 years. That's literally more than half his life. He worked as a quality manager. He retired in 2017. He's also known for exposing the corruption and being one of the Boeing whistleblowers. He had a trial set against Boeing in just a few months. Mysteriously, he dies just a few months before his trial from an alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound, I assume to the head. What's more mysterious is when he died, he was already in a deposition about the Boeing case, and he was wearing his own suit. That just doesn't add up at all. Boeing has issued a response. They said, "We are saddened by Mr. Barnett's passing and our thoughts with his family and friends."
Coincidence? I think not!
I think John was really making very two distinct and important points that you're about to see here. The first point is the issue is not just a 787 or a 737 model problem. The issue is a Boeing problem. He mentions those two particular models because they were the top two models that were basically the renaissance of crap in, crap out kind of quality.
The FAA is saying that the plane is now safe to fly. What do you say?
One, this is not a 737 problem, it's a Boeing problem. And I know the FAA's gone in and they've done due diligence and inspections to assure that the door plugs of the 737 are installed properly and the fasteners are torqued properly. But my concern is, what's the rest of the airplane? What's the rest of the condition of the airplane? And the reason my concern for that is, back in 2012, Boeing started removing inspection operations off their jobs. So it left the mechanics to buy off their own work. So what we're seeing with the door plug blowout is what I've seen with the rest of the airplane, as far as jobs not being completed properly, inspection steps being removed, issues being ignored. My concerns are with the 737 and the 787, because those programs have really embraced the theory that quality is overhead and non-value added. So those two programs have really put a strong effort into removing quality from the process. When I first started working at Charleston, I was in charge with pushing back defects to our suppliers. And what that meant was I'd take a group of inspectors and actually go to the supplier and inspect their product before they sent it in. Well, I'd taken a team of 4 inspectors to Spirit Aerosystems to inspect the 41 section before they sent it to Charleston. And we found 300 defects. Some of them were significant that needed engineering intervention. When I returned to Charleston, my senior manager told me that we had found too many defects and he was going to take the next trip. So the next trip he went on, he took 2 of my inspectors. And when they got back, they were given accolades for only finding 50 defects. So I pulled that inspector aside and I said, "Did Spirit really clean up their act that quick? That don't sound right." And she was mad. She said, "No." Said the 2 inspectors were given 2 hours to inspect the whole 41 section and they were kicked off the airplane.
Let's pull up this article from the Daily Mail and read it together. Boeing whistleblower John Barnett, full list of claims the dead 62-year-old made against the firm since 2019 as former employee's body is found in his truck. Just imagine someone turns up dead months before his trial against Boeing, and not from like a car accident, no, from an alleged gunshot wound to the head.
I don't believe you.
I found that to be deeply coincidental. Boeing whistleblower John Barnett was found dead in his truck outside of a South Carolina hotel, which the coroner put down to a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the head. The 62-year-old attorney, Brian Knowles, has made sure to call this an alleged suicide. I agree 100%. This is just insane. When someone dies, generally, you seem like the police is immediately suspicious of it, and they call it any potential suicide or any death is a homicide until proven otherwise. So for this seemingly very suspicious death, somehow the authorities just decided to go with the No, it's just a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's kind of very presumptuous, though, before you even conclude any evidence of any kind. Could it be someone else? Yes. So how do you come up with the conclusion that it's just self-inflicted? That is insane. Unless the authorities are just part of it. They're playing the role with Boeing. Who knows? Allegedly. However, the 62-year-old attorney, Brian Knowles, coming just days after his client testified in a lawsuit against the aviation giant, and cops that have confirmed that they are investigating further. Sergeant Anthony Gibson of the Charleston Police Department told local media, detectives are actively investigating this case and are awaiting the formal cause of death, along with any additional findings that might shed further light on the circumstances surrounding the death of Mr. Barnett. The ex-quality manager of Boeing's North Charleston's plant, where 787 Dreamliners are built, was found in his truck in a hotel car park on March 9th during a break-in depositions in said suit. Mr. Knowles added that Barnett had just given a deposition to Boeing's lawyer for the case in the week before his death. The company said it was saddened to hear of their ex-employee's passing. The whistleblowers so the guy was still in his suit from a deposition about this exact case. I don't think that this is coincidental at all. The guy had all his senses. He's going after Boeing. He was so determined. And then suddenly, no, I'll just give up on life. Let me just die at age 62. This is insane. The whistleblower was a Boeing employee from 1985 and became Charleston's site quality manager in 2010 before retiring on health grounds 7 years later. What were his subsequent claims? Find metal shaving above Boeing 737 flight control wiring. So looks like he told the New York Times that he raised concerns over clusters of metal shavings produced when fasteners are fitted in nuts hanging above the wiring commanding the flight control. Wow. He said that if those sharp metals pieces were to fall and penetrate the wire, it would be catastrophic. Barnett added that he repeatedly urged those above him to remove the shavings before making his whistleblower complaint, but was ignored and later moved to another part of the plant. Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, spokesman said it had inspected several planes certified by Boeing as free of the shavings and found the same metals debris which can cause short-circuiting and fires. It's either the FAA is not seeing it or is not seeing it, if you know what I mean. It's just strange that someone would want to go after them at this age when he's really probably, well off. So it seems like every single claim he made, they basically ignored him completely. One is about hydraulic tube. And then at the end, Boeing responded to this claim by saying that they notified airlines as precautionary matter, but found no evidence of the dented hydraulic tube after investigation. I mean, what happened when you investigate yourself or you have a corrupt organization investigating yourself? It's like the FDA approving drugs for Big Pharma. What difference does it make? It's literally the same thing. It just makes no sense. The people that work for the FDA, they get very low salary for, a couple of years before they get hired by Big Pharma for insane amount of money. So 787 just happened to be John Barnett's Dreamliner that he was warning against.
A career job. It's a few years on the FDA, and then they're being courted by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, and now let's take a look at the next part.
FDA officials are supposed to be watchdogs over pharmaceutical companies. They're also constantly courted by pharmaceutical companies.
You'll have a Merck going in and saying to somebody on the FDA, I'll give you $600,000 if you'll come and work on our regulatory committee to go into bat for us with the FDA. And they'll say, okay, well, I'll think about that. And then there'll be like a Pfizer will come in and say, well, we'll give you $800,000 a year to come in and work on our regulatory committee. And so it becomes like a bidding war like that. So the FDA knows that their next jumping off point to go from a lower paying government job to be a very lucrative farmer job on the inside, the manufacturing side, they know that that's part of their career path. So that, I'm sure, weighs heavily into their decision-making process.
And so I'm not saying
it's not because they're smart. It's not because they're, it's not because they're valuable. It's because they're just having those connections, and they can only last long in the FDA. Back to this. Flawed emergency oxygen systems. So it seems like he had also issues with tests suggested up to 25% of oxygen systems for the 737 might not work when needed. After arranging a test, 75 of 300 bottles straight out of shock were faulty. Ooh, that is crazy. But Boeing insisted no such bottles ended up in aircraft. Okay, faulty parts being deliberately fitted. The whistleblower also told the UK broadcaster in November 2019 that the rush to get its new state-of-the-art airlines off the production line resulted in a hurried assembly process where safety was compromised. Boeing denied this, insisting that safety, quality, and integrity are at the core of Boeing's value. Oh, it's like the equivalent of a cop saying, oh, it's, we're here to serve and protect, not harass and collect. It's the same garbage, just regurgitated over and over and over again. Looking at this, the Alaskan Airlines, that door that blew off, that was the same plane. So that was still Boeing and 737. That is a quality issue. That is someone who's extremely lazy that decided, no, I'm not going to put bolts on that door. Or I forgot. It's just insane. People could have died. It's the same thing as here.
Good evening. The terrifying moments of a LATAM Airlines flight from Sydney to Auckland, plummeted mid-air, have been revealed for the first time. Dozens of passengers sent flying across the cabin, left bloodied and screaming for help. Authorities have now seized cockpit voice recordings and flight data after claims the pilot's instruments went blank.
2 hours into the flight from Sydney, passengers resting after lunch.
Over here, he's bleeding quite badly.
The LATAM Airlines Dreamliner, with no notice, drops from the sky.
There was a massive air pocket, and about 30 to 40 people have gone flying up in the air. Little people have hit their heads, they've smacked their heads, they've got one person with a neck injury now, bleeding out.
Dozens of passengers and crew slammed into the ceiling, landing on the floor with a thud.
Are you okay? Yeah? Sure?
One man emerged from the toilet, blood streaming down his face.
Anyone that was not in a seatbelt just flew randomly all across the plane.
Another passenger could be seen nursing a wound to his head.
It's dropped out of the air instantly, and then it started to nose down. I was sure it was over.
One had rib injuries, there were plenty of cuts and bruises, and many people were in shock.
I looked up to see the gentleman that was sitting next to me on the roof of the plane. I'm looking at him fully outstretched with his back on the roof of the plane, and then he came crashing down to the floor.
One of the most seriously injured lying prone in the aisle.
To be pushed down, which is the aircraft was, it's a severe movement. It's worse than falling off a cliff.
Luckily, there were several doctors on board who quickly went to work, helping those who needed it the most. Brisbane woman Clara Azevedo was lucky she had her seatbelt fastened.
Pretty much all the flight attendants got injured as well, so we didn't have any assistance from the air crew.
One passenger with a neck injury had his head strapped to the seat. The pilot did regain control, and with people nursing all manner of injuries, a belated announcement.
Keep your seatbelt fastened.
The Boeing 787, with 272 people on board, continued on without incident and landed safely an hour later in Auckland. It was met by a line of ambulances, 4 Australians among the 13 people taken to hospital. As passengers were getting ready to disembark, the pilot came down the aisle.
I said, what happened? And he said, my instruments, I just lost them. He goes, just for a few seconds, they went blank.
A possible loss of instruments, or perhaps a case of clear air turbulence.
It's possible they inadvertently flew into a thunderstorm where there are updrafts and downdrafts. That's possible. That's my gut feeling.
The incident has caught the attention of aviation authorities in the US.
We will certainly work with the Australian authorities or the New Zealand authorities to investigate that, and the Chilean authorities. It's obviously not a US flight, but it is in 787, so we will certainly follow that closely.
Boeing is in their sights after a door on an Alaskan Airlines 737 recently blew out mid-flight. It's so serious, a criminal investigation has been launched. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Mark is with me in the studio. Mark, you have new information on another Boeing incident yesterday.
Indeed, Peter. It involved a United Boeing 777 bound for San Francisco. Now, this is the moment yesterday when the plane took off from Sydney Airport. You can see what appears to be smoke coming from a wheel on the right-hand side. In fact, it's probably leaking hydraulic fluid. Well, it was bad enough, though, for the aircraft to turn back around 2 hours later. Now, back at the gate, you can see smoke coming from the same wheel gear, probably fluid coming into contact with the hot brakes. We contacted United Airlines, who said the plane returned because of a maintenance issue. Well, 4 days ago, a wheel actually fell off a United Boeing 777, taking off from San Francisco and crushing several cars. Peter, Mark.
Here, 50 people injured, including actual flight attendants.
A mid-air emergency.
I looked up. I was sure it was over.
LATAM Airlines flight
Kicked into gear and just took off again.
Ambulance crews called to Auckland International Airport.
It's dropped out of the air instantly, and then it started to tail down, like nose down, and then it just picked up. It just kicked into gear and just took off again. And I was sure it was over.
LATAM Airlines flight LA800 was travelling from Sydney to Auckland when it experienced a technical problem around 11 this morning, WA time.
I looked up to see the gentleman that was sitting next to me on the roof of the plane. I'm looking at him fully outstretched with his back on the roof of the plane. And then he came crashing down to the floor. It was insane. I thought I was dreaming.
Paramedics treating 50 people at the scene, 13 taken to hospital. Most had just minor injuries, but one person in a serious condition.
The ceilings were broken on the plane. I have photos of the ceilings broken. Like, those were bodies that hit the top of the plane.
The Chilean carrier saying the Boeing 7879 Dreamliner had a technical problem which caused a strong movement, and that as a result of the incident, some passengers and cabin crew were affected. They received immediate assistance by medical...
This is not normal. What is happening? What's happening, I think, is safety is being compromised for money because these companies continue to want to profit. If you ever look at any, let's say, if you look at a stock from a CEO standpoint, you're expected over years the growth to continue upward. If it's not going upward, you are doing something wrong. And I think that is, in of itself, is a disaster because that requires you to cut more employment, cut more on things that might actually be more important. It also might require you to you can see, expect it to be going up endlessly. That just realistically doesn't work this way unless inflation, of course, is running, which is, but it's still, Boeing is plummeting as a result. You can see it kind of reached a high at some point in 2019, but it's been going downhill. And these corporations are cutting money from the actual cost of the integrity of the plane itself, from the safety, from people. What's the worst case scenario? A plane just falls and they're gonna blame it on, the Malaysian Airlines. These people did something stupid. They're gonna make things, they're gonna blame it on, these people don't know how to use technology, which is kind of racist, to be honest. But in any case, they're gonna try to blame it on anybody but themselves. At no point when you don't take responsibility for your own actions, you're gonna always fall behind like that. You're going to be constantly trying to just cover up for more issues instead of addressing the main problem and the main elephant in the room. The main elephant in the room is you need to continue to have more success, to cut on cost, to make more money, especially during inflation. How do you do that? Obviously not by compromising people's lives. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let me know if you have any other ideas for new videos. Thank you for watching and have a great day.